Hi, this is Mr. Campbell, and this is my video blog for week 5. As always, we'll start with where we've been, we'll go to where we're going, and then we'll do some extracurriculars at the end as well. So in Social Studies 8, we knocked out our Unit 1 test. I think it went pretty well overall. And then we started our Explorers Tournament. I did the President's Tournament with my U.S. History students that went very well, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. At least in brief. And then I decided just to try it with my Social Studies 8 students. In the past, I've had them choose an Explorer and write a paper over that Explorer, and I decided to go ahead and give this tournament a shot. They still have to complete a grid of information, answer some questions about the Explorer that they chose. That was actually due today, and then we started this tournament, and we're going to continue that on through next week. Students will need to watch a couple of lecture videos, Unit 2, Sections 1 and 2. I'm going to actually record those and post them to Google Classroom. Students will be given fill-in notes then that they'll have to complete. The first round is actually due on Monday, so hopefully that goes well, because this is something that's fun. This is something that I think students are going to get a lot of enjoyment out of, but it is also going to take a considerable amount of time. So that's actually kind of both, where we're at and where we're headed in Social Studies 8. So I'll just kind of follow that theme throughout the last two classes as well. U.S. History, we finished our President tournaments. Millward Fillmore, won in first hour, and, Thomas Jefferson won Andrew Johnson won, actually. Andrew Johnson won, in sixth hour. So congratulations to those students. Again, I think that was a very successful kind of experiment. And the reason that it was so successful is that the students kind of took ownership of it. It was something different. I've heard a lot of students, from both my U.S. history class and my dual credit history class say that, it's just something fun and different. And, yes, it took a little bit of time. I think in the future I'll handle it a little bit differently. I'll utilize my YouTube channel, much like I'm doing with my Social Studies 8 students now with their Explorers Tournament. But I think it was something worthwhile, and it was something that's enjoyable and something that we can handle differently in the future. Now, like I said, because that was my first attempt, we did lose about a week of time with my U.S. history students, which is not a big deal. What we've done then for the rest of the week and what we'll finish up next week is just a series of brief review lectures on the board, just about some of the highlights of the time that we covered with all of those different presidents. And then there will probably, the test that I will give then over Unit 1 is going to be open note. It's not something that I do very often, but I feel like given the circumstances of trying something different and having to still cover the material, both in a non-traditional and a traditional fashion, I think open note is justified here. And so we'll do that probably towards the middle of the week, possibly the end. And then we can begin our second unit, which is the material that we'll really be taking our time through, which is the Gilded Age, the period right after Reconstruction. So kind of ambitious, but that's where we're headed in U.S. history as well. Finally, in dual credit U.S. history, we started and actually finished our presidential tournament just today. The winner was William McKinley. And again, that was just another one of those things that I wanted to continue this sort of tournament model and try it a little bit. And my dual credit students really enjoyed this as well. The matches were pretty close throughout, and I think that was really worthwhile. So this next week we'll get back into sort of a groove, our more traditional format. We're actually going to go directly to Chapter 6, which is the French and Indian War, which has really, for me, become one of those things that I didn't really study a whole lot in high school and college, but I've really gained an appreciation for as I've taught this course for the past couple of years. So really enjoy talking about the French and Indian War with my dual credit U.S. history notes, with my dual credit U.S. history students. Real quick, just some extracurricular notes. This has been homecoming week all week. I expressed to the students that homecoming isn't really my thing, but then again, I'm not the one that homecoming is designed for. Homecoming is for our students, and homecoming is for our alumni that are coming back. So I think all of the students really enjoyed the different dress-up days. I think they also enjoyed, obviously, the homecoming Olympics is always a favorite. And then tonight, obviously, we're going to be having the homecoming ceremonies. I know that because of the weather that's been forecast, they moved all the normal ceremony that would be during halftime of our football game tonight. They moved to 6:45, just to make sure that we get all of those things in the best weather conditions possible, as it is supposed to rain quite a bit tonight. And also a chance of some severe weather as well. So, trying to keep everybody safe, but again, also, making sure that we can finish off, what's been a really, really good homecoming week on a really good positive note. So I'd also like to, if there are any alums that happen to be watching this, would also like to welcome you back to the Attica area, and hopefully you get to enjoy the festivities this evening and hopefully a great game. The JV football team opened the week on Tuesday, obviously with Labor Day being Monday. We opened on Tuesday and beat Rockville 40-0. It was a really, really solid game. Our guys, again, continue to compete, continue to get a lot better, both offensively and defensively, as we pitched our first shutout. I know varsity volleyball went 1-1 on the week. I believe they dropped a contest down at Riverton Park early in the week, and then I believe last night they beat, I think, Tri-County is who they played last night. So they went 1-1, so they continue to play pretty well. Girls golf, I know, beat Clinton Prairie. I saw that in the announcements, so they continue to perform at a pretty high level. And then I know cross country had a couple meets this week. They seem to have a lot of athletes that met a lot of their personal goals, and they continue to improve. I also know our junior high cross country team picked up a win this week. So those athletes continue to perfect their craft. And then, as I mentioned, tonight is the homecoming football game. We are at home tonight playing Rockville. That game is scheduled to start at 7 p.m. But depending on the weather, could get postponed or delayed. Just kind of depends on what the weather brings. So, finally, one last note, and a more serious note, is this Sunday is I believe the 15th anniversary of the September 11th attacks on America. We will spend all day Monday in all of my classes, social studies at U.S. History and dual credit U.S. History, talking about the attacks of September 11th. I know that for me, I was in 8th grade, and I have a lot of very vivid memories about that event and sort of what I felt and how I reacted to it and how I still remember it today. And it has struck me over the years while I've been in the classroom, and I realize that a good part of it is because of the discipline that I'm in, being history, but I've been very conscious and very aware of the fact that eventually I'm going to be teaching a class, a generation of students that was not alive when 9/11 happened. And for me and for others that are my age and certainly older, I'm sure that is a very difficult thing for people to wrap their heads around, is that, these young people were not even alive. And they don't remember the pre-9/11 era. All they know is what we refer to as the post-9/11 era. That's just life to them. And in light of that, I always set aside a day to talk about 9/11, because I think that it's very, very important for these students, especially as we move further and further away from the event. Many of my 8th graders, I think there's only 1 or 2 that were actually alive during that time. It's very important to them, I think, that they feel comfortable talking about the event. They feel comfortable asking questions about the event. Because it is one of the landmark dates, one of the more tragic dates in our country's history. And so we're gonna take some time to talk about that. I have given notice to all of my students. I do try to do that because this is a very impactful event. It's a very tragic event. Some of the things that we're going to talk about may be uncomfortable for some students, and I recognize that. So I want to make sure that everybody has a good heads up about what we're going to do. I want it to be a positive discussion where students can ask and get their questions answered. But I also want to make sure that students are comfortable in my classroom at all times. And so I want to make sure that they can prepare themselves mentally if they need to for that discussion. So I know we're kind of ending on a down note, but that's sort of where we're headed in all my classes on Monday. So with that, hopefully we'll see you tonight at the football game, and I'll talk to you next week.